You've never done it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. We would like to welcome Miss Sandra. I was like double thinking it again. That's the way of the mind. You guys, before we even got recording, we were going over how Miss Beautiful Sandra's name is pronounced, and I wanted to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, because us Canadians can't figure this shit out sometimes.
It's true.
No, I just think I'm just trying to be difficult.
No, you're not. You're funny.
Absolutely not.
I thought it was gold.
Yes. So we got to hear the two different ways, whether it's Sandra or Sandra. And
No,
Sandra is way sexier. Just have to say it.
I co-sign on that.
That's right.
Yes.
Check.
That's your fierce goddess, beautiful name. Okay, guys. So I'm going to just introduce and let you know a little bit about her. So she is a one-on-one coach, which does soul sessions. And she is helping you create more freedom, joy, income, and impact, reminding you you're worthy of extraordinary. And founder of At I Am Worthy, also a speaker. This is something that you need to add to your roster at the upcoming MYM conference that we are going to, and so excited to be going to.
Yay.
And the host of the Worthy podcast. And you are just a badass babe doing all the things.
You know what? Here's the interesting thing is I often get asked, the question I get asked most is, well, why did you create Worthy? And you teach that which you most need to learn. And for me, Worthy was actually birthed from a place of, I wasn't always a coach. Actually, this is so far removed from what I did for most of my career, most of my life. I was a management consultant. I worked with big companies, global companies, doing all kinds of things in information technology and project management. And eventually that transitioned to building my own company with my husband, who is my business partner. And that company grew very successful, and we ended up being an 8-figure company. And for me, just to give you context of where I come from, like I was literally born and raised in a mud hut with no running water and no electricity. And so having this life where I literally lived in $1 million house, had my luxury SUV parked in the driveway, had, a daughter in private school, all of the things, all of the trappings that society says, should make you happy. And I had all of this stuff. And I'll never forget that the year that we hit 8 figures for the very first time, that was the most miserable year of my life. And I couldn't figure it out that, well, here I was having come from where I'd come from and now had all of this stuff. Why wasn't I happy? And it was going on this journey that I found, first of all, that my worthiness was so attached to stuff, right? Being validated externally by external things. And it was on that journey of me, we were talking earlier at the beginning before we started recording about how you've both been on your own journeys of self-discovery and self-awareness. And that's what I went on, was this journey of, self-discovery. And funnily enough, one of the speakers, you talked about being at MYM, at the MYM conference, one of the speakers there is Danielle Laporte. And she was the very first personal development thing that I ever remember consuming. Wow. And I remember being so struck by her saying that what you're looking for isn't the stuff. It's the feeling that you think the stuff will give you. And that literally was like the heavens opened, the angels sang. I was like, ta-da, this is what I'm looking for. And I've been using stuff to validate me and to look for my worthiness outside of myself when really I am worthy. And so that's how I ended up it's a much longer story, but how I ended up creating the brand Worthy and the website iamworthy.com, and actually just launching an app that's in both the app stores, Google and Apple, that you can find by looking for I Am Worthy. Beautiful. And so that's how I end up sitting here having this conversation with you two lovely ladies.
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
love what you said, how, and this is, we've talked about this, being the master of our own shadow. And when we dive deep enough, we find what our life's true passion, what's been most impactful for us. And that's part of our story. And that's what needs to be shared. And we live in a world of monetization. And we also live in a world where a lot of people need this information and type of coaching.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just where we're at. And that's why people are thriving actually in this business if you do it right. And you know,
It's like being heart coherent is always what I say, right? Right from your, if you're not leading from this place, really,
Yeah.
what do you have?
but it's
not
so
authentic.
cool though. Like, what was it? What was it that you said that was that defining point in your life where you realized, and that you said that was like obviously what she
Yeah.
said, right?
It was having the stuff, you know, like, because I, like you say, we live in a world that thrives, that makes money off of telling us that we're not enough, that we're not worthy, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly being told, you're not thin enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have enough followers, you don't yet live in the dream house, all of these things that really focus on what we don't have. And there are very few people who help us see what we do have and for us to focus on that. And when you think about, if you're into whole manifestation and all of that kind of stuff, if you think about what you're putting, if you attract what you focus on, we're spending all our lives focused on what we don't have, right? The not enoughness, the not worthiness. And so what are we attracting more of? You attract that which you focus on. And so we get more of that. And so it really is, like you said, it's about, like, in the work that I do, I like to think of it as goal work and soul work, that there is a marriage, that it is cool to have this stuff. Like, I'm not about to give up my, nice car and nice house and all that and live on the street or, be a pauper. I like having nice stuff. And I truly believe that whatever you believe, in God, Buddha, Allah, universe, whatever your belief is, that which is greater than you wants you to have nice stuff and to live a nice life and to be fulfilled. And a lot of that does come from, the foundation is you can't want fulfillment if you're hungry, right? You can't, if you're homeless, you can't be thinking about, oh, I want to be fulfilled. And so we have to meet those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base needs. But for most people, that then becomes just a continual chasing. So it's, like now, everywhere you look, everyone's talking about having a 7-figure business. Like, having a 7-figure business has become the little black dress. You know how when you're growing up, you're told everybody needs to have a little black dress. Well, now having a 7-figure business is the little black dress. Everyone must have one. But why? Because it's coming not from a place of in here and what do I want and what is my purpose and what fulfills me. It's coming from a place of, if I can just have more stuff, hopefully, and we're crossing our fingers and our toes, it will fill this emptiness that I feel within me from not living a fulfilled life, from not living my purpose. And it's so funny. I was reading an article recently where they were talking about how storage units are now one of the biggest businesses in the world, in North America. Right? Because we're buying all this stuff, and then we buy the bigger house because we've got all this stuff, and then we need to put the stuff in storage because we keep buying because we're looking for fulfillment in the stuff, or in the, watching TV, or in the shopping, or in the drugs, or in the whatever. And it's all because we're trying to fill this void, this feeling of not enoughness, this feeling of not being worthy as I am, and living a life of purpose.
So I have a question, and I kind of have my own answer for this, but where do you think that we're not bridging the gap with, and why this is happening for us? Like, and I know we could go, but I see we've kind of lost the art of learning this part of this foundation of life. We've got lost from it, and it's not being taught as much. And that's why I think it makes so much sense when people like us, we're the cleanup crew, is what we call it. We're here at this time for a reason, and we've been inspired enough to make this kind of a movement. But like, why is it that we've lost that? And I wonder Do you ever see it coming back in a way that it's going to help the world in our lifetime?
I think that what you said is so powerful, that we're the cleanup crew. We're the ones who've been enlightened. We're the ones who truly are the light workers to help other people see that they are in darkness. But when you think about it, even the concept of light and dark, there can't be light if there is no darkness.
Right.
And so I feel like this is maybe just a natural evolution of what we're supposed to go through to come back to our true nature, to come back to, we've become so focused on outside of ourselves to the exclusion of inside of ourselves, and to when you say about being taught, when you think about what kids are taught in school, none of that is about live a life of purpose, live a life of passion, follow your passion, right? It's all about follow this particular curriculum, and then you will go to college, and then you will get a job. And nowhere in that are we teaching our children that it's not about the stuff outside of you. It's about what lights you on fire, and helping our children or encouraging our children to find their joy. And so I truly do believe that for those who've had that epiphany, that is our work. And that work looks different for different people. I don't think we all need to become coaches, or for all of us to, build whatever it is to get people or to force people. And I also believe that we all come to our awakening in our own time, right? At our, however that happens for us. It took me a long time to realize how unhappy I was. And sometimes that rock bottom, whatever your rock bottom looks like, becomes the solid foundation from which you then get awareness and then start to build. And so I think that it's that's a deep, goodness gracious, that's a deep question there.
She's deep.
I could go down the rabbit
I just
hole.
wanted to talk about my favorite color.
I know.
No, but we want the juice, the goods.
Yeah. But
No,
I
it's
truly
hard.
think all of it goes back to, if I had to say, what do I believe? And what have I learned from my own life experience? Like, I'm not some guru spouting off, sitting on a throne saying, I know the secret. I'm still struggling, right? Every single day. And I truly believe that is life.
Yeah.
That is the
And I love
purpose
that
of
you
life.
exude that, because that's the authenticity. That's the true part. Like, we're all human.
Yeah.
All got a
meat suit. I call it a meat suit.
But one experience might not be what somebody else is experiencing when we do teach our things, but it's definitely for somebody.
100%.
It's for one person. Yeah.
So
I think we've done our job, right?
When you were going through that time, where that redirection is what I would call it, what happened? Were you feeling depression, anxiety, just complete rock bottom?
Yeah.
And then what was your first step into that light? Like, what can you give our audience and anybody listening and watching that little insight of what you did to make that step out?
First of all, I think that sometimes, it does take rock bottom for you to be moved, right? The universe, I feel like the universe is always whispering to us, always whispering these redirections, but sometimes we don't want to hear them. Sometimes we don't want to hear them because it's not what we want to hear, or it's not comfortable. It's not a truth we want to acknowledge. And so I think that for me, it was a long time coming. I had the feelings of, this isn't enough. And it was always on okay, it's not enough. Okay, fine. You made the 100,000. Maybe I'll be happy when I get to the million. Maybe I'll be happy and always like chasing. And where my rock bottom came was actually literally being diagnosed, sitting in a doctor's office. And she said to me, I've never seen anybody in my 15 years of practice who had a stress response as high as yours.
What?
And wow. In that one, like when she said you have the highest stress response, like the overachiever in me was like, like my mom, and she clearly saw,
surprised
this girl is not getting it. You're the worst, right? And that got my attention because I had all the symptoms, right? I was exhausted all the time. cranky all the time. Just I was constantly just pushing. My body was exhausted, and it took like me literally passing out one day to then be like, okay, let me go figure this out. And that's when, ran a bunch of tests. And that's when I was diagnosed with depression, with severe burnout, a whole bunch of things, which unfortunately for me, I did a real number on myself. Years on, I'm still healing. But that was, for me, was like, she said to me, if you keep doing this, you will die.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I still want to live. And that became, and I wish I could say there was just this one thing that, oh, the heavens opened, the angels sang, and here's your solution. It was really me understanding for the very first time that, first of all, my worth didn't come from anything outside of me, because that's what I'd been chasing. If I could just get the next and the next and the next. And then second of all, realizing that the foundation of my healing had to be from a place of loving myself, from a place of self-love. And what I want to share with anybody who's listening to this is there's no shame if you're struggling. Because I think often we struggle in the darkness, we struggle because we think it's just me. That's and right. Also, like in my case, like I said, on paper, I had a dream life. And so I felt all this guilt about, well, how can I be unhappy when, I've got all of this stuff? But your emotions are your guidepost. And so if for anybody who's listening, who's like, where do I start? It's first and foremost tapping into your emotions. What am I feeling? And oftentimes when we feel our emotions, we want to label them good, bad, right, wrong. But that's a terrible place to be, because you can't be in a place of judgment and also curiosity. Your emotions are like your North
I just
Star.
freaking heard that today on Kara Lowenthal's podcast.
There you go.
I just fucking shared this on my story, and you just said it.
Okay, we clearly the universe.
It was about this episode is what we're fucking talking about right now. This is so good.
Love it.
So literally, because we make ourselves right or wrong. And because we live in this world where it's love and light, good vibes only. And, like, let's sage all the bad feelings away. But they're indicators, it's kind of like, I think it's Abraham Hicks who talks about, it's like driving your car and the indicator on the fuel says empty, and you're like, bad indicator, and you put a sticky over it. That's kind of what we're doing with our feelings. That's right. True. They're telling you something. And so we numb ourselves to our feelings. We, shop, we medicate, we all the things just so we won't feel. But if we can give ourselves the safe space of knowing that my feelings are telling me something, and getting curious and bringing awareness to, what are you telling me? Where in my life am I off course? Because your true nature is joy and peace and love. And so when you're not feeling those things, it's just telling you something needs to change, telling you you're not living in alignment with the greater you that the universe knows you to be.
So beautiful.
Beautiful.
I love it.
Do you know how Sarah and I met? True story for anybody who's watching.
We want the juice. Give us the juice.
True story. Not even a word of a lie. I sent her what would, I guess, be the equivalent of hate mail. I DM'd her, and I was like, I don't like what you just said, which was so not in my nature. Like, normally I'm very much a live and let be, not my circus. I don't need to. I don't even know why. I was like, send. And I, in all honesty, when I pressed send, expected that she would block me and I would never hear from her. And here was the beautiful thing that happened. She reached out to me. She replied, and she gave me like a very, like a really beautiful message about, this is why you think you're seeing what you're seeing, but this isn't the truth. And also, thank you so much for taking the time to write to me. And if you're open to it, I'd love to have a conversation.
Oh,
And I was like,
what a woman. Oh,
first of all, listen, this isn't how it's supposed to go. You were just supposed to block me and we're supposed to carry on with life. But I
Redirection.
couldn't say no to a conversation. And I wasn't sure, like, I really wasn't sure what the energy of a conversation would be. Like when you started off me, like, right? And it was such a beautiful conversation. And I think where we landed was, first of all, it was meant to be like a 15-minute chat. We ended up being on the phone for like probably an hour and a half. And we probably would still be talking if we didn't have
I
like
believe it. I am
I
not
believe it too.
surprised.
Yeah.
stuff to do. And where we ended up was we don't have to agree, but we can respect each other's opinions.
That's
Wow.
right.
You know, we can have differences. We don't it doesn't always have to be kumbaya, but it's the way that we do it in. And I think that oftentimes the desire to be right costs us so much. It brings so much pain when we're like, I'm going to tell you my position. And then the other person entrenches in their position even further. And then it's just this duking it out of
listening,
of ego, right? Wanting to be right. And yet I can say, you know what? I see you. I hear you. I hear your position. This is my position. Can you see me? Can you hear me? And okay, we can not agree on the same things, but you know what? It's fine. Like life goes on. And I feel like the world would be so different if we could go through things that way.
And I just wanted to say, there's a perfect example of life being different and going that way. You guys just used that perfect example. You did it.
Yeah.
So I always call that energy in. It's like, we're speaking of this. This is the direction, new earth, the world, the energy is going. I don't care what anybody says. It's just happening.
But that's what happens. That's how you get a happy village.
Yeah.
You just like water under the bridge. How can we move past this in a way that we can agree to disagree with respect for each other's
and forgiveness?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
move on.
I agree. Yeah.
There's
I
no
can't believe she said that. Like,
yes.
No, now you're going to
Yeah.
say, I believe it because you are worthy of it, girl. You are worthy of that because it's true.
So I want to go back a little bit to your story in the worthiness. And I feel like there's a big part of this that we did not bring attention to when you said that you used to live in a mud hut. And I want to bring attention to a little bit of trauma that could bring on is maybe more reflecting later in life and how that could have played a huge role in the way that you see things. And as children, they're just so perfect in the way that they are. They're so resilient and they are willing to set things aside just to be happy. They just want to be happy.
Yeah.
And if they feel like, they need to, be happy and like make it a safe place as much as possible. If that means putting some things away so you don't look at them just to be happy, that's what they'll do. But it's not until a little bit later in life that we look back and we're like, oh shit.
That impacted my life
Huge
in such a
impact.
big way.
So can I ask
did.
how that impacted yours?
It did. And it continues to do so because it's not a something. And I think sometimes when I tell this story, I actually should post more on social media. I was just home for Christmas this past year, and I shared actually some video on social media of my mom's home, like literally where it's mud huts.
And where is home?
Like in Zimbabwe.
Amazing.
Zimbabwe.
And, where she's lucky because through me, I, can give her means where she has solar panels at her home. So she has electricity and she, has a borehole and all that, but that's unusual. Right. And so I have literally direct family, not like, distant family, direct family where they still live in mud huts and have no running water and no electricity. And so, yes, absolutely. I would say, and I had two other than my parents who were incredible and worked so hard to give me opportunity that helped move me beyond where I grew up. I had two other people who I would say were so key, so influential in my life. And those were both my grandmothers. my maternal and my paternal grandmother. And in particular, just because I got to spend more time with her, my maternal grandmother. And both my grandmothers never went to school, never had the chance to go to school. At the time that I was born, Zimbabwe was called Rhodesia. And at the time that I was born, the constitution of my country told me that because I was a little Black girl, my life was worth less. I couldn't go to certain schools. I couldn't go to, be born in a certain hospital. I couldn't drink from the same
belief that they instilled into
in the country.
Yes, I couldn't drink from the same water fountain. Like there were water fountains that were literally labeled whites only or Blacks only. And so that's the backdrop of where I grew up. But and this is where I truly believe that we have people who are put in our lives who really have such huge impact, and sometimes maybe they don't even realize it, or we don't even realize it. And my grandmother, even though she never knew how to read, couldn't write, never went to school, and she worked as a housemaid for all of her working years, worked for a white family in the suburbs, in a suburb that I could never live in because I was Black. Wow. And she would sometimes, like on Saturdays, she worked a half day. She worked until 12. And so sometimes on Saturdays, she'd take me with her to work. And I'd go sit, like make sure, sit quietly, behave yourself, don't touch anything. Because she would be babysitting me while my parents worked.
Wow.
And on the bus, on the way there, she would sometimes like point out these beautiful houses and on these tree-lined streets with cars in the driveway. I never had a car. Tree-lined streets, like yards, swimming pools. And she would say to me, Sandra, one day you're going to live in a house like that.
Oh,
and she would always say to me, one day you're going to, when I was little, before I could even go to school, she would say to me, one day you're going to go to school. One day you're going to, and she'd say to me, you're going to go to school overseas. Now,
wow.
I didn't know what overseas was, a country, a place. And she would tell me all of these things about one day you're going to go overseas, and one day you're going to go to school, and you're going to have a degree, and you're going to have your own house. All of these things that she could never dream, that were never going to be possible for her. And I truly believe that she had such a huge influence because I grew up believing that, oh, one day I'm going to go to school, and one day I'm going to get a degree, and one day all of these things that at a subconscious level, she implanted into my mind very early on. And so, yes, it really did. But it also, and here's another really important thing for me growing up that my father used to say. My father passed away 3 years ago. And if you were to ask me, like, what's the one lesson that you remember most from your father? He would say to me, Sandra, your success will never have any meaning unless you bring other people with you.
Oh,
so that for me, I realized when you asked me about like what was that moment, that breakdown moment, and why the breakdown, I truly believe it's because I wasn't living this in this way, in this purpose, that I was all about me, right? I was like, I want to grow the business, and I want to have more money, and I want to have more stuff and all of the things. And I had forgotten that part about, for all of us, there's actually a wonderful word in Southern African dialects, that's Ubuntu. And what that speaks to is our shared humanity.
Ooh.
And it's a principle that speaks to the fact that I am because you are, that I cannot be okay if you are not okay, that I can, when I learn, I need to share, that we really are all one. Yeah. And so those really are the key things that when you say, what are the things that impacted me? Those did, but also, like you said, what do I carry with me? It still is in some ways, and it's something that I continue to work on, that poor little girl mentality, the fact that, I there might not be enough, right? And that's what drove me, in my career, was like, I need to work hard and I need to constantly prove myself, because I grew up in this environment that told me at a young age that I was not enough.
Wow. I think we all carry that little child inside of us. And that's what it's
true.
there for that part, and to live into the childlike energy, to live in that creative and that curiosity also. But it's that part of our childhood and that lesson, that's the key driver. And that's part of the blueprint, why you had to do whatever you had to do so you could spread that word. Because the fact of the matter is, we can't grow as a nation, as a unified nation right now, unless if we start giving ourselves that self-love. I am worthy enough. I am love enough.
So important.
Get so in touch with your intuition that you can live a life of abundance, with discernment. You use your discernment at the same time. There's a lot of information coming in, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. I was telling Kristen when I first came in here, I'm like, I'm fucking buzzing. School started. I'm like, there's shit going on. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm not even doing as much, but my mind is like, whoa, and I'm tired. I'm like, I'm tired.
Gotta ground back down to Mother Earth.
Like, wow.
It's constant, isn't it? And if you think, like you said, we live like, it's mind blowing, the information that we now have literally at our fingertips, right? I was thinking, gosh, when I was at school, like you'd have to, if you wanted to research something, you couldn't just like Google right? You'd have to like, oh, tomorrow I have to go to the public library, and then you have to look for the book, and then the book was checked out, and then you have to put yourself on the list, like all of this. And now we literally have so much information, and yet we're so lost, to the point that if you go on Google, right, and this works for most people that I've done it with, if you go on Google and you type in the Google search bar, how do I learn to, for most people, somewhere in the top 3 results is, how do I learn to love myself?
Ooh. Whoa.
Try it out. And for anybody who's listening, try it out.
Okay. I actually have.
It's worked for every single person that I've ever done it with. And like literally, we're having to turn to Google to figure out like the single most important relationship in our life, the relationship with ourselves.
Far removed. We're just so far removed. It's outside of a practice, and it comes from Big Brother. So we have to really kind of turn things around and go back to the basics, go back to mother love, mother nature, and source whatever it is outside of you, mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't have to be a coach or a guru to do anything.
That's right.
It's just about you living it. It's like we said, you don't have to go out on, on a mission to change the world, because you changing yourself and you seeing things that way, that's the first step, right? Because that has a ripple effect, especially if you're someone who has kids, or you're someone who's around kids, because they see and they learn from imitating more than anything we say to them about do this, do that. Like,
that's a whole other topic too.
And,
oh man,
I could
go down the rabbit hole.
Look at how it was your grandmother or great grandmother?
My grandmother.
Look at how your grandmother impacted you at that young age. Like, that is so beautiful. I had goosebumps all over my body, and even the words from your dad, and those things will be with you forever, and they will be with you forever. I was starting to zoom out, and I could just sense their energy and just the love that they have for you, and will never leave your side, and are so proud of you and just guiding you every step of the way. And it's like, when we do get off track just that little bit, or we get too into our ego, it's like that little prompt or that little reminder of, what did dad say? And that heart coherence. And is this in alignment? So thank you for sharing those moments from your childhood. And Tiffany, thank you for prompting, because I really wanted to know more of your upbringing, and what you went through is incredible. Like that, I can't even imagine.
It's a totally different life.
Not even being allowed to drink, like that's imprinted in so many people. And then to unlearn that. Thank you for answering the call.
Yeah. It's a whole, like, even when I look at other countries, I spent a lot of time over Christmas in South Africa, which is even more recent in terms of or even if you look at America, right? And you look at how much race and all of these things are always bubbling underneath the surface, and we kind of paper over them. It's like, oh, let's move on. And yet these are wounds that people carry. And even within Canada, right? All of the things that are coming to the surface now about
Oh my
the
gosh.
injustices that have been done. And I think that often, you know, to the point that I said, that sometimes the temptation is, let's just move on, let's just move over it. And we haven't acknowledged. And that's, yes, that's at a global scale, at a country scale. But I feel like even within our own lives, how
Yes.
often do we go through something difficult and we just I just want to be past it. And what then happens is we don't learn the lesson from it. We don't see
Right.
the gift in
That's
it,
right.
because in every situation, even the worst
You rob
situations,
yourself.
there's something there for you. There's a gift, there's a learning, you know. And so how can we look at, appreciate all of the things that have happened, and know there's a wonderful quote from Eckhart Tolle from The Power of Now, where he talks about, I'm paraphrasing here, but he talks about, with everything that happens in your life, act as though you had chosen it.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
Because when you go from that place of, okay, if I chose this, why is this happening to me? I think it opens you up
The
to
answer comes a lot easier, I feel,
Mhm.
without trying to
Versus
change
we're
our
often
control.
in resistance to it,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to feel this. I don't want to be going through
Yeah.
this. And so we miss that opportunity to learn and to grow, right? Yeah.
That's a
You
huge
nailed
thing
it.
I like to teach in my classes, is when you go through meditation and prompts and throughout, you know, that time with a class, everybody's obviously on a different journey, but what can come up for a lot of people is those emotions, whether it's rage or sadness of tears. And I do have one girl, she smiles every time I work with her. she got a blindfold on. She's got this big ass smile. She just makes my day. But the point I'm getting at is making sure that people understand that that subconscious is not looking for the story. It's not looking for the answer or anything. It doesn't give a shit, really. It just wants you to acknowledge and do that while you're in a safe space.
Yeah.
So when you
Feel.
have that, the feelings is within the healing. So when that happens, there's a huge release. There's a huge release, and that is the practice. So I think, we could talk about injustice a lot, and I think it's important to acknowledge 100%. But how can we empower our nation and our breed in a way that we can move forward and using our shadows as a way to draw us towards our life's passion or our life's purpose?
Mhm.
And I think that is truly the blueprint, is if we can learn to stop numbing those feelings and using that as your power.
Yeah.
Because we're disempowering ourselves every time we try to get away from that feeling.
Yeah.
So we use things like breath work. We use things like plug in, just turn the mind off for even 5 minutes. Go for a dip in the water. Do a quick little meditation. Like, what are you saying to yourself? What's that internal? Bring some awareness to that internal dialogue. Like all these little tools, right? But submerge yourself in nature. These are the things that you can put in your toolbox to help. But I also do truly, truly believe that we all need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Really do. We need that connection. And it just
We
helps.
do 100%, whether that's, you know, a coach, a therapist, whatever it is somebody, because you can't see your own blind spots. And sometimes you can't reason with yourself because you're in it, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, like a brain surgeon can't give themselves brain surgery, right? You need to
That's right.
have somebody who can mirror to you, but also who can help you rationalize and say, okay, not to say, and I think oftentimes, like you said, that we're numbing ourselves because, like you brought up rage or anger, right? We've been told, especially as women, that's a bad feeling or bad thing for you to ever have rage, but that's an emotion. There's a reason you're feeling it. And so it's being able to have that safe space, that safe someone who can help you excavate, what does this mean? What, you know, how do I move through it? Having someone who can hold you to move through it, because the only way, you know, we try, right, to numb, to all of the things, but the only way through it is through it, right? You have to feel it for you to release it.
Yeah.
It's truth.
So good.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
It's not really a question. I'd love for you to share this. I saw it on your Instagram and I just thought it was brilliant. You were sharing how to stay motivated and the map. And I was hoping you could do a little share on that because it was just fire. And it was landing for me. I was like, yes.
I wish I could take 100% credit for it, but so I'm actually certified as a habits coach, and part of it was when I was on my journey of figuring out what are the pieces that I need to bring together and how do I create habits, because we are our habits. And so I actually signed up and got certified through Dr. BJ Fogg. Now, Dr. BJ Fogg has been studying behavior for almost 30 years. He's the head of the Behavior Research Institute at Stanford University. And he came up with this model. It's actually called, we tease him about this, the Fogg behavior model. We're like, you couldn't think of anything more original, right? But what the Fogg behavior model talks about, and this is specific, like, especially in the domain of, if we're talking about habits, but it's about any behavior. So even if you're looking at, oh, when I get into anger, like, what is that? Like, what's causing that? And what he says is every behavior can be mapped to three things. Number one, the first part is, so the formula is B equals MAP. And so the M is all about the motivation. And you can also put into there willpower. And what motivation is, what's propelling me to do this thing? What's inspiring me to do this thing? And so that's the first part. And when it comes to motivation, for example, if we're talking about it in this space of habits and being motivated to get going and do the things, whether it's I want to exercise, I want to build my business, whatever the thing is, motivation is a very fickle emotion, right? You know how it is, like New Year's Day, everybody's like, this is going to be my best year and I'm going to do all the things. And so in that moment, we can be motivated, right? We have the motivation, we have the feelings. Same with willpower, right? It's day one of the diet. I'm not going to look at the cookies. I'm not going to look at all the things. But 15 days in is the reason why gyms oversell their memberships, because they know by the end of January, nobody's in there.
Yeah.
And so we can't rely on motivation to get us going. And so what are the other pieces of it? So you can almost think of it like a three-legged stool. So the A is all about ability. How easy, if it's something that we want to do, how easy do we make it for ourselves to do it? So let's use exercise as an example. You want to get into a regular exercise routine. So how can I make it easy for myself? So it might be, make sure the night before I pack up my gym bag and have all the things ready. It might be, I sign up for a fitness class, or it might be, I'm going to pick a video, right? An online video, a short one that just helps me get going, like help me do it. Because the mistake that most people make is going too big too soon. And so I'm going to work out for an hour and a half, 7 days a week. You're going to burn out very quickly if that's what you're trying to do. And so it's, how can I make it as easy as possible for myself to do the thing? The inverse works as well. If you're trying to stop a habit or stop doing something, how can I make it hard for myself? So like one that a lot of people who are in my coaching programs talk about is the phone, right? Addiction to the phone and Instagram. How can I make it harder for myself? And so that's where it might be when you're doing focused work, having the phone in another room where physically it's not sitting right there with you, or turning the phone off, or like thinking about how can I make it harder for myself to just reach for my phone. So that's the A, is ability. Make it as easy as possible or as hard as possible for yourself, depending on what you're trying to do. And then the P is having a prompt. And sometimes you'll hear that referred to as a trigger, a cue. It's the fact that every behavior that we do first starts with some sort of a cue, a trigger, a prompt. So, if it's the going to the gym, it might be a prompt of, it's the time of day. I work out first thing in the morning. Or if it's, I don't know, eating healthy, it might be that I have, a specific time that I take my vitamins, whatever it is. It might be time-based, it might be location-based, it might be all kinds of things, but having some sort of okay, it's time to do the thing. And when it comes to your prompt, never negotiate with yourself, because this is the part where it falls apart for people. So you set the alarm to get up, for example, in the morning, and you press snooze,
Yeah.
you're already lost in that moment, because the moment you allow your mind to doubt, it's like, oh, maybe we'll do it later. Maybe, and we make all
easy
kinds of
to
excuses,
continue.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. This is where, if you've ever read the book by Mel Robbins,
5-second rule.
5-second rule. I was like, what is that? Which was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because I have
Yeah,
5, 4,
I
3, 2,
just
1
told my
myself
son
a
that
lot.
this morning. I was like, Cassius, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, out of bed.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
we love
And
that.
so
book.
that really is like, if you're trying to get yourself to do something, look at, okay, motivation, ability, prompt. If you're trying to stop doing something, motivation, ability, prompt, just in the inverse.
Wow. Oh,
It's really good.
so
It's
you
a good-
reverse it.
Yeah. So where you want to do something, you want to feel motivated, or you want to latch into motivation. But if you don't want to do something, that's where the willpower comes in. If you want to do something, it's how can I make it as easy as possible for myself? If you don't want to do something, how can I make this as hard for myself? And then with the P, the prompt, how can I make sure I have a prompt that reminds me to do the thing and do it as soon as that prompt goes off? Or if you're trying not to do something, how can I hide that prompt or stop myself from having that prompt in my life, that trigger, that cue in my life?
I love this.
Yeah. Setting yourself up for success.
Yes.
Map.
Good. I love
it.
this.
Yeah, we
Such
love
good
tools. This is what we do often.
Finish each other's.
Yeah. Just the telepathy is
Yeah.
like, ding, ding. And you know what's cool? So I do want to ask you, I ask everybody, is your favorite book of all time? You can only pick one.
Oof.
The Alchemist.
Okay.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. Okay.
Mm.
I actually
'Cause I-
haven't read that one.
Who's the author?
Paulo Coelho, I believe. Is it Paulo Coelho? No. Yes. Paulo Coelho. Because I was thinking of another book, like when my mind went up, when you're like, what's your favorite? I was like, oh, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Paulo Coelho.
I'll write that too.
I loved, you know why I loved The Alchemist? Because I think it's such a powerful story. And one of the things that I have learned, in my career, I actually went back to school when I was 40 years old and studied documentary filmmaking and storytelling at Columbia University. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter what culture, what country, we all understand story. We all understand story.
Oh, that
And
runs
so
so deep.
it runs so deep, and it's passed on from like for me, like I could tell you the stories my grandmother, who didn't even know how to read a book, would tell me, and I'm going to pass those on. But what I love about when messages come in story, like sometimes when you're reading a book, which is, I hate to use the word prescriptive, but it's like, okay, I'm learning how to do habits. It's like, okay, this is like it's almost like textbook.
Okay.
But when the lessons come to you through story, you remember them. It's much easier for you to remember them. I bet you could, all the stories that your kids, or even like movies or whatever, you learn through story. And so for me, that's why I love that book, because the story is so powerful, and the story speaks to possibility. And for me, like one of my favorite parts of that book is when he talks about the fact that when you call your shot, when you tell the universe, when you declare what it is that you want, the universe will conspire in your favor, and so that for me has always been something I've carried, that get clear on what you want, shoot your shot, and all kinds of magic will happen when you've told the universe what it is that you want.
And I want to add a little bit to that, because there is, you're not going to win every shot that you take, but you lose 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just go for it. Fuck the failure is the best part, really. I mean, you got to have that will and that drive, and just keep shooting for the stars, man. Like,
we learn so much more. We're so afraid. We've been so conditioned to be afraid of failure, to be afraid of disappointment. Like it's the wound that we fear most, is being disappointed. And so we keep ourselves small, right?
Yeah.
And we go for small things because I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to try and then fail.
Yeah.
And it's really, instead, like if we could teach ourselves, and I think especially if we could teach our children, that the only way you fail is if you quit. That every time you try, even if you think about the greatest inventions in our time, the light bulb, how many times did that dude try to make a light bulb and failed, right? Wasn't it like on the, I don't know, 100 and something attempt that, right? And
Yeah.
even Disney, didn't he get turned down for, like, he went
Oh.
broke and he went all the things, and he went for loans and he was rejected so many times.
I think
But he
Katy
kept,
Perry's on there too. She was like,
yeah.
same thing. Michael Jordan's the
And
most tangible.
Harry Potter books,
Yeah.
what's her name? The lady who wrote them, how many times did she get
Lived in her
turned down?
fucking car, like.
If you guys listen to Katy Perry's song Fireworks, she says maybe the reason that the doors were closed, it was for you to open up the one yourself.
That's right.
And it's just like,
Yep.
ugh.
I'm a hard believer in all of that. And I feel like I've had the most growth in my failures from the
Yeah.
things that I've attempted. And it's like, okay,
It's learning. It's a
it's just
journey.
learning. I know.
It's a journey to get
take
there.
the shame and all that away. And
Yeah.
you know what, we have to unlearn what we've learned, right?
Yeah.
So, but I feel
Yeah.
like that when you live that way, that just feels right.
Mhm.
If you can just take that ego out and that story out just for a second. I always tell people that, like, if you're hitting things on and it doesn't feel good and you're all doubting yourself, I'm like, if you could just take the fear and then emotion aside just for a second and deal with life like business, wouldn't you just still fucking go for it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what? And that's like one of the things that I'm learning, which sounds so dark and, you know, morbid, is you're going to die. Like,
I love it.
I
We're
know.
exiting out of the
that's
shell.
the only way off this ride is you're
You
going to
got it.
die. And I can guarantee you that one generation, three generations for sure, they won't even know who you are. I couldn't even tell you who my great grandfather was, right? I don't know. Like, they've forgotten. And all the people that were afraid of, like, oh, what will they think? Well,
Truth.
they're going to die too.
We'll see you. We'll be our pure consciousness, just bopping around saying, look at all that bullshit that we were made up in our head and not living
Yeah,
and in
yeah.
fear, and the things we weren't taking because of false evidence appearing real. Like,
Well, this is the Dolores Cannon said this beautifully. Do you ever listen?
have you
or
heard
what?
of Dolores Cannon?
Yes.
Yes, I've heard. Yes, I have.
Her
Yeah.
books. We've read
Oh,
a few of her books. like,
Amazing.
but she said this in just one of her videos, and it's any energy or spirits outside of the human world that are not human are actually quite jealous of us because we are mortal and we live knowing that we could die tomorrow. So everything can look more beautiful, can taste more beautiful, can feel more beautiful. And they can't do that. They just know what's beautiful. That's it.
Mm.
We have a more appreciation for it because
The
we have that
senses.
contrast. We know
Yeah.
that tomorrow could be our last day or today could be our last day.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, I like to look at it from that point of view because I used to dive, as you know, I'm a deep thinker. And there was a point in my life where I really got afraid of death because I was so afraid of missing my children and my children missing me. That's really what it came down to, with my kids. And then when I looked at it in that point of view, I'm like, no, this is more of a gift than anything. And I'm going to live in that mindset and that energy, along with obviously everything else that we talked about, because this is just fucking gold. Seriously. Like,
Yeah.
Sandra, this is such a good conversation. I feel like we could do this for a really, really long time.
Mhm.
And this is a whole reason why we do the podcast, is to share other people's stories like
And they're
yours.
magic. You're
Yes.
magic.
And thank you for doing that, because, you know, to what you were saying about us being the cleanup crew, light workers, whatever you want to call it, that this work is so needed because somebody's going to listen to it and maybe they'll get one thing out of this that helps them shift their perspective and helps them move more into who they really are, the truth of who they are. So thank you. Because I know having a podcast, it's not easy.
We've been going at it since 2020. This is our
Wow.
third year and
Wow.
we love it. It's what we love to do, is share. It's really sharing other magical souls with the world so that they can see how we are all so much the same and that everybody has a unique gift. There's not one person on this planet
Thank
that
you for
doesn't
saying
have
that.
a gift.
Yes.
Every single person. I didn't get to ask you though.
Mhm.
Who is the number one person that's inspired you? I
My
know you shared
grandmother.
people, but
Your
okay.
grandmother.
Yeah,
My
I thought so.
grandmother.
Mic drop.
I know that was kind of like, okay, she truly has, because for me, I actually, oh gosh, I shared this is one of the most beautiful moments for me. And it was about trusting intuition. So a year ago, actually, just almost a year ago, I was invited by, I don't know if you know Lindsay Schwartz from Powerhouse Women. And Lindsay invited me to speak at the Powerhouse Women event last year. And I had a speech prepared and all the things. And when I got up on stage and opened my mouth, something completely different came out of my mouth than what I had planned to talk about.
Love that.
And it was the very first time I had ever publicly talked about my grandmother and the influence that she had on me and who she was and all of the life lessons that she had taught me. This woman who, like, really, when you on paper was like, not educated, worked as a housemaid her whole life. And yet she truly, for me, was the most inspirational. My mom too. Absolutely. My mom is a badass woman who's just like, so like
The apple doesn't
truly
fall
an
far from the
inspiration.
tree.
But my grandmother, like, really, I feel like so much of who I am and it was inspired by her and who she was. And what I realized in seeing her was that it has nothing to do with what your station in life, like how successful you are. It's about who you are as a person. And that was a lesson that I learned, that even that you can be a kind, generous person, you can be an ethical person, you can do all of the things and carry yourself with such grace. And I learned that from her. So
What's her name, hun? What is her name?
her name was Chengeto, which means, actually, when I think, it's like a promise keeper, like it's someone who, so yeah. So one day, my dream, I'm going to put it out into the universe. One day I'm actually planning to create a foundation in her honor that educates young girls.
Yes.
Do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got goosebumps all over.
we got your back.
Yeah. And let us know too.
100%. Yes.
So thank you. No, I'm so grateful to the two of you for asking me on and for this beautiful conversation. It didn't go at all. Like, your name as a podcast is so misleading, because I was like, I don't know what they're going to talk about.
It's like, it's instantly, it's ego, right? Right away. It's like raw babes. It's like, what? And that's the joke about Tiffany and I. It's like no, this is the joke. It's like the shell, and then the moment that people just have that judge, and then once they get in, they're like, whoa, we didn't realize we were going to go to the depths of our soul.
Yeah.
And that's because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
just,
when you first reached out, Kristen, I thought, okay, they're gonna ask me about like Real Housewives and like what's my favorite show, and like, I didn't expect to be talking about spirituality.
that's it, straight to the goods.
Hey, I love the lesson in that. I love how you judged us. Thank you.
Thank you for judging us.
Just so you know, I didn't judge you. I saw you with love and light.
You are a better human being than I am, Tiffany.
Oh my God, this is so good.
I can't wait to hug you when we see you. I mean, yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled that we got to have this conversation. Just so much juice.
Yeah, I can't let this go without asking if I have your permission to pull you a card from Messages from Heaven.
Yes, please.
Because I've been getting the tingles, and it's like the connection of whatever needs.
I literally just had like full body.
Yeah. And it's just like your loved ones, your dad, your grandmother, like there's some beautiful message.
You're not allowed to make me cry like that. That's
I
like,
almost already got emotional.
I sure
had to breathe
did.
through it.
Okay, so any message that needs to come through, please allow it to come through for Sandra's highest and best good. And I just allow the cards to fall, whichever one is for you, just effortlessly.
Which means she's a messy shuffler.
I let my beautiful spirit team connect with Sandra's beautiful love.
And our humor.
And our humor,
The
yeah.
two of you are such a beautiful play of, like, you're physically so different, your energy so, like, both so beautiful but so different. Like, you're such a delight.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I'm feeling energized after
Yeah.
this conversation.
Yeah. And that's our goal, right? We want to be relatable. So that's why we just kind of, I don't know. We've done the work. We've worked very hard.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop. It never
It
stops.
never stops.
Yeah.
It's the game of life, right? We're
Yeah.
always playing to go to the next
Yeah.
level and the next level.
Yeah. Evolve. And that's
Yeah.
what we're fucking doing.
Yeah.
We're evolving.
Thank you for acknowledging. So your two cards, the first one that came out is you are ready for a change of scenery and it's time to explore. And there's something too with, you've got angel wings and there's
I'm
a white,
literally cracking up with that.
and there's white
because-
wings with a
Sure.
candle, a white candle inside.
Is you're yeah, it's so funny because I literally am just getting ready for a big move.
No,
Are you?
A big move.
Oh my gosh. And that's 12, 2 + 2 is 3. Okay, so yeah, there's something with the number 3, but I'm also getting like 3 and 9, and like 9 is completion. So a cycle's completing. So it's time for this new and this next venture for
I
you.
have a note for 3, actually.
And then I have to say to you, it says, we will assist you in helping the important people in your life use love. So this is not like, this is just coming back down to also, aside from this message, is by you tapping into your heart coherence, which you are doing, and using love, that's that ripple effect that is going out there to touch each and every soul that comes into your contact. And it's like, even just that hello, your smile, your frequency, and your energy is what the room is needing. And it can be just that walk through the mall.
So beautiful.
It's like the party has arrived.
Yeah.
I'm ready for my close-up.
So I'm going to read, it says, your mind and body are ready for a new direction. Further investigation into all options is suggested. It may be as big as a moving house or as simple as a weekend away from home. Your loved ones will bring you further signs, which you will hear in your mind and feel in your body. Watch out for our signs as we help you decide on your next step. And there's going to be something with candle, light, flicker, white. There's just a lot with that angel wing. So just keep that in the back of the mind. And then the next one is part of our path on earth is to help others along life's journey. Some would argue that this is our most important task. Helping others can be as simple as passing on a smile, what I just said, or holding out a balancing hand. Whenever you assist others, hold the intention of love in your heart. Your loved ones continue to send love and support to you in return. Every step you take in assisting others, we applaud you and thank you. And I'm like super emotional. So it's just like, you're just so honored and they just are so proud of you for like everything you've been doing. So keep doing it. You're just surrounded with love.
Thank you.
And I've
Oh.
written down notes on numbers, and number 3, proactive knowledge, learning ideas, fueling the brain with ideas on how to execute. So I don't know if that resonates with you.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're
for
so
this
welcome.
Beautiful gift. I'm
Yeah.
oh,
so immensely grateful.
oh, thank you for doing what you're doing. And that was the second one,
Thank
44.
you.
And you can see, just like, look at the giraffes, just connection.
Wow. So powerful.
Oh,
Thank you so
my
much.
whole body.
I know. I'm like, I'm gonna need to lie down after this.
Yeah. I'm going to send a little photo of the write-up and these 2 cards. Just, I'll send them to you so you can have them. It's always nice.
Thank you so
Mwah.
much for this beautiful gift. I truly am so grateful, and thank you for
Yes.
what you are doing and the beauty and the light that you are putting out into the world. I'm so
Oh,
grateful.
Thank you.
you just
so
called
much.
yourself beautiful.
You are beautiful.
Thank you,
ladies. I
Sandra.
cannot
Yes.
wait to see you in a few days. I cannot wait to hug you in person in a few days. I'm
Yes.
truly so grateful that our paths crossed.
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in and being a part of this and witnessing such a beautiful journey. And for everybody to reach out, you can see all of our notes. We'll have all of Sandra's information and her Instagram, so you can follow her. And
And you can download the app on both the app stores. That
yes.
like if you're looking for it in the app stores, look for I Am Worthy. And so thank you. Thank you so much.
So good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we
Thanks,
are
Sandra.
cutting it out.